Do you have any performance coming up or audition that you have to perform a piece of music in memory? Or you always wanted to learn how to memorize music, but you never tried? A performance in memory could give us the freedom to express that piece of music, an opportunity to deepen our relationship with that music. Hi, I'm Jeeyoon Kim, classical pianist and teacher. I have been performing and teaching last 20 years. In my concert or in my teaching studio, this question about how to memorize music has been one of the most frequent questions to be asked. So I decided to create this course only dedicate this very important topic for you. All of these tools I'm going to share with you here is that I've collected over the years from my own performance mishaps and my own daily practice, also through teaching my own students how to memorize a piece of music. By the end of class, you'll be able to understand how memory works in music, also how to create a visual map for the piece that you want to memorize, and also step closer to a confident performance in memory. Hopefully to see you the other side. There are 3 different kinds of memory. 1 is auditory, 2 is muscle memory, and 3 is cognitive memory. We all have strength and weakness, and in order to have a musical memory, all 3 have to work. But the thing is that even though you may have some strength and weakness on each part, it's really where you lose all at once. So more modality that we use, the brain retain a little more information. It's important for us to strengthen our weakness and use more modality as we go about musical memory. More difficult time we give to brain to use different kinds of modality, more likely will also retain that information more securely. Number 1, auditory memory. That is something you can hear the sound in your head. Can you sing all entire piece in your head? Oftentimes, Suzuki training musicians have a little more strengthened in this auditory memory because they started from the beginning, they only working on music memory and by sound only. And I had a student that he learned entire piece by just hearing the piece. I don't know how he did it. I find that it's much harder. But in his case, auditory memory was very strong. That's why I really emphasize the importance of singing. It can be done with just la la la, but or solfege. I grew up within culture that singing was very natural. In music education system, there are a lot of oral theory. That is because so that we can hear the sound in our head a little bit better. So this aspect of memory I used all the time as a mental practice. When I wake up, I think about maybe 1 page or 2 of my memory in my bed, or when I go for a walk, I think about the sound of my piece in my head. I advise my students to be able to hear that sound in their head. Maybe you don't have to sing it out loud, but in your head. If you feel like this is one of the weaker side of your musical memory, then I advise to start with the tune that you know really well, like Happy Birthday, and try to play that tune only from what you hear in your head and onto piano or on your instrument. Make sure you play something every day in memory so that you keep bringing back the sound that you already have in your head. Especially at the initial stage of learning a piece, make sure you listen to different kind of recording of the piece so you have a more sonic picture of how this piece sounds. Later on, you could definitely record yourself and listen back as well. Another thing you can do is open a score and follow along the score and by practicing in your head. If you're stuck in somewhere, especially for pianists will be left hand, then stop at the point that you cannot play that part anymore, then try to play it on your instrument and remember the sound and put it together. As a pianist, we have a little more struggle because we have to deal with the different parts, and often there's a lot of notes. But that doesn't mean we cannot hear all the sound at the same time. Imagine you are at the party, there are all different kind of people talking, but you hear all at the same time. It's not like you only single out that person. But if you like to single out your best friend's voice, and you can definitely recognize it. So you have to find what is your best friend's voice, and then you can actually hear it. It's a very similar kind of concept. You have to know what you're looking for and really try to image that sound in your head. For me, this is one of the most important tools that I utilize all the time. If I can play through entire piece in my head, in my bed, or when I walk, when I swim, this is the important clue that I'm entering into a little more secure stage with this piece in memory. Number 2 is muscle memory. I think this is the one that I don't have to even explain what it is. You know, the problem of muscle memory is that we rely on muscle memory almost 99% of the time, especially when you don't memorize consciously. You know, a lot of times, yes, so musicians will say, yeah, I just memorize. I don't even think about it. So that probably means they have a very good muscle memory because of their years of training, so as their years of training of listening. So auditory and muscle memory work together, and automatically they memorize it. But we can also be more conscious about this muscle memory by obviously practicing a lot longer hours. In the history, we used like a dummy piano kind of thing. I'm not sure what could be equivalent in violin or other instrument. Maybe you just kind of imitate the position. In dummy piano, we play without the sound, so you're only relying on the muscle movement. Have you ever seen a pianist practice their pieces on the table, and you can see their fingers and use the correct fingering, but they're actually hearing the sound in their head. So they're basically what they're doing is strengthening the auditory memory, and so is muscle memory. So I don't do a whole lot of this muscle memory strength because that's more of given, but I find sometimes, you know, something like those electronic piano, it's a perfect dummy pianos. So I recommend for you to try to practice your piece with the sound off and see if you can actually play through. That's actually not easy to do. And another thing you can try, if that is too much, then put the volume really low and practice entire piece. So you're really hearing more in your head while you're working the muscle. If you're a violinist or string instruments, purposely you put your instrument out of tune, severely out of tune, and try to play it. And can you play it? Then you'll really have to rely on your finger muscle memory as well. Maybe you never had a problem of memorizing piece because it came natural to you. That means you did a lot of muscle memory, and so as auditory memory by just putting a lot of hours. But I find more consciously we put our attention to the other guys, auditory and cognitive memory, that muscle memory, it's there, but when the other fails. I find the muscle memory is important, but not as much as we put emphasis on by practicing long hours, just automatically you memorize. Interesting for me, the reason for me I start memorizing right away at the day one is that I don't want muscle memories take over the other part of the memory. I actually want to memorize a piece consciously before muscle memory take over and be able to memorize the entire piece. We have to distribute different kinds of memory more consciously. So by you doing cognitive auditory memory, so when those things fails, the muscle memory remains. Again, it's very rare that all three is gonna fail all at the same time. Oftentimes, I know that certain part of the music and go along really fine, but then all of a sudden my cognitive and auditory fails, and then all of a sudden my fingers pick up and my fingers go. And that's the time that I go, oh, thank you, muscles, you remembered. And then I pick it up from where I left off and keep going. So muscle memories are important. I definitely rely on that as well, but not 100%. That is the least reliable kind of memory, but I need it. So I hope that you strengthen the muscle memory, but also distribute the other part of the memory as well. Number 3 is cognitive memory. Maybe this is whole reason of entire course that I designed, because I want you to be more conscious and be active about your memorizing piece. And the cognitive memory is about how much intellectually do you know? Do you know the form of it? Do you know how the phrasing goes? Do you know the difference between two similar sections? And can you know, create a storyline of it? Do you know expression of the piece? All of other details that we know and consciously know as information of the piece, and also find the pattern. Again, the chunking really comes in here, and all of that is the cognitive memory. Cognitive memory, how we're going to strengthen this part is probably the rest of the class that we're going to dive into with the practical tips. As I mentioned earlier, the other class, here is again that understanding music theory comes very handy. It doesn't mean you cannot do it, but it's just very handy and efficient for me. But if you don't have any harmony background or never studied it, it's never too late to tap into, because you know at the end of it, you don't have to know a lot. You just have to know basically key signature and just a basic chords, comfortable enough it's become your own language. Then you see all different notes and you just know, oh, this is A major family. Oh, this is the C minor family. So you can already categorize this music into a pattern. But if you don't, and in fact, I have students that don't have any music theory base and no knowledge of theory, but they still be able to create cognitive memory and visual maps in their own term. I highly recommend to start from where you are, and even without any harmonic language that you have, it will still work. But it will be easier in the long term. If you're gonna play this instrument entire life, why not have another tool that is handy? Cognitive memory also comes with knowing the background of this music as well, and music history comes in as well, because it just deepens the relationship of your piece. And looking at the score and visually analyzing, oh, I never knew there was staccato here, oh, that slur here. All of this that we analyzed visually, that works. Also, cognitive memory is probably works with the visual memory, which is that you know certain music is on the right hand corner on the top. So visual cues also becomes our cognitive memory, because that is another information that we remember very consciously. Think about these 3 different kind of memory: auditory, muscle memory, and cognitive memory. Which are the memory that you're relying on the most? Which are the memory that you feel like you would like to strengthen? And if you feel like your auditory memory is lacking, you can certainly start play something by ear and memorize the piece, and always play something in memory every day by singing and all that things, the strategies that I mentioned earlier. And we can always strengthen that is cognitive memory, which we are going to talk about the rest of the course. That comes down to our next class that we are finally dive into, creating visual map with your piece. But I am gonna do with a fur list, so you can kind of see how I would process to create a visual map. I know some of students that took that course said it's really helpful, so I hope that if you have any question about how to memorize music, is start from there and then come back to me if you have any more question regarding it. So I'm looking forward to meet you there, and it's basically very much like a miniature university course but having fun at the same time. I really like that. So if you didn't subscribe to my channel yet, please subscribe and check out my other video as well, and see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.